Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, share us with your friends, your family, and make lots of comments that'll help our show, help our algorithm move, and make this show more viable to a larger audience. Folks, I was a little reluctant to cover this story, but I think it's an important story, especially from a police perspective. And we all know that ICE is being deployed, immigrations and customs enforcement is being deployed throughout this country uh, in a lot of cities that are high crime cities, a lot of blue states, which people find to be highly political. However, that doesn't change things in regards to when you're a sworn law enforcement officer and you receive a calls for help from a civilian, from a citizen, there's no second guessing. You're going, no matter how dangerous, no matter how far away, no matter who that person is, you're going. The same thing if a law enforcement agency, whether they be federal, state, local, whether they be the FBI, the ATF, ICE, or any other number of federal law enforcement agencies. But it makes it very difficult for law enforcement agencies, specifically local police, when their city or their state is a sanctuary city. Because clearly the policy of that state, of that city, is not to assist ICE. And Chicago has it's called the Trust Act. And the Trust Act stands, the CPD, the Chicago Police Department, cannot help ICE with immigration enforcement. All right, we all understand that, but that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about in regards to the allegations here was that ICE called for help and that the Chicago police were instructed by their chief of patrol not to respond. Now, we're going to go on both sides of this issue, whether that was actually a direct order given by the Chicago chief of patrol or whether or not they actually were there on the ground and did respond. So those are two important things to discuss. There's the mayor of Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson, who is a huge proponent of Sanctuary City. The Chicago Police Department is pushing back against allegations that officers were told to stand down in response to weekend incidents involving federal immigration officers and agents, including one in which a woman was shot. The Fraternal Order of Police and Advocacy Group for Law Enforcement alleged Chicago City Police were ordered not to respond to assist a group of immigration and customs enforcement officers while they were being physically threatened by what appeared to be an angry group of people. A spokesperson for the National Fraternal Order of Police said that both the FOP and the Chicago chapter of the organization believe that when an officer calls for assistance, you answer no matter what. However, in a statement provided by the Chicago Police Department spokesperson, the agency said that officers did indeed respond to incidents involving federal agents and officers, including the scene of a shooting in which a woman was hospitalized after being shot by federal officers. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson said that a woman who had been threatening federal officers had a semi-automatic weapon and was in a vehicle that boxed federal officers in. DHS officials said the shooting occurred in the city's southwest side of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents were ambushed by a domestic terrorist who rammed federal police with vehicles. The woman, injured by defensive fire from CPB agents, was driving one of the vehicles and had a semi-automatic weapon. Officials said that the woman was shot by police, had a history of doxing agents. So that is That was from News Nation, that little report. So we're going to look into both sides of this. What actually happened? Did the Chicago police, in fact, respond? Were they told not to respond? We'll look into both of those things. But, folks, in the meantime, hold on to your hats, hold on to your loved ones, hold on to your cup of coffee, hold on to your thoughts, hold on to your opinions. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off the cuff zone, the police off the cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
Part of the law and part of what I discussed earlier, as a sworn law enforcement officer, you are expected to respond no matter who calls, no matter who is at the end of calling for help. You respond. This is a report how Fox News reported on this incident.
Is telling Fox News police there were told to actually stand down on helping ICE agents who are in danger. Mike Tobin has this story for us, all the details. Hi, Mike.
And Dana, we've got a lot of rank and file Chicago police officers behind the scenes telling us that they are outraged that the stand down order went out to them after federal agents were attacked. The order appears to have come through a communication from the chief of patrol over the communication through the Office of Emergency Management and Communication, reading, "No units will respond to this." Multiple police sources have confirmed to us the message is authentic, and it is backed up by audio of the stand down order.
And again, per the Chief of Patrol, we have all the units that, per 999, Chief of Patrol said all units clear out from there. We're not sending anybody over to that location. All right, and 999, just to confirm, 39th Police in Kedzie, they were saying that they were being surrounded by that large crowd, and they were requesting the police were not sending. I'm waving off all the cars heading to 39th Police in Kedzie.
Again, those are the orders we're being given.
In an official statement, CPD says officers did respond. Writing, quote, CPD responded to the scene to document the incident. CPD officers were also on the scene to maintain safety and traffic control. Now, chaos was triggered when, according to federal prosecutors, two individuals used their cars to ram the cars of Border Patrol agents. One of the agents shot a driver of one attacking vehicle. Those attackers are now charged federally. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says the facts need to play out.
We don't have a lot of facts. Remember, these are the same folks who killed a person, unarmed person, just a couple of weeks ago in Franklin Park. At first, they said that the officer had been threatened with his life. The reality of it and the truth of it has now come out, and that wasn't the case. They killed somebody. They are just putting out their propaganda, and then we've got to later determine what actually happened.
300 Illinois National Guardsmen have now been called up for a 2-month deployment to Chicago. What you're looking at right now is video of the scene that triggered that particular radio call. Tear gas and pepper balls were deployed into the crowd after agents said they were attacked. But meantime, as I just mentioned, 300 Illinois National Guardsmen have been called up for a 2-month deployment to Chicago to protect federal personnel and property. Also, Texas National Guardsmen, 400 of them, have been called up for deployment to both Illinois, to Portland, and an undetermined location. Back to you, Dana.
All right, Mike, thank you.
Hey, it's so there's no doubt that they were told, both on the radio and documented, they were told by their chief of patrol not to respond to that area. There's no doubt. So now, of course, the Chicago police, who are in the most untenable situation that there is, because this is so political, on both sides. Chicago is a sanctuary city, so they will not allow their police to assist ICE in the apprehension and in taking into custody illegals. So ICE is on their own in these cities. However, as we had spoken before about, they must assist anyone, whether it's a law enforcement officer or just a normal citizen that needs help. They can't say, "Oh, don't go there. Don't go there. They're not. They don't deserve your help." They have to go there.
Indicates that these people are organized. They're getting more and more people on their team as far as attacking officers, and they're making plans to ambush them and to kill them. We have specific officers and agents that have bounties that have been put out on their heads. It's been $2,000 to kidnap them, $10,000 to kill them. They've released their pictures. They've sent them between their networks, and it's an extremely dangerous situation and unprecedented. Make no mistake, this isn't just about, protesting free speech or that they don't like that people out here are upholding the law of our country. They're actually going out there and saying, kill these people and we'll give you this much money to do it.
Okay, that was Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem on Fox and Friends saying drug cartels, gangs, known terrorists, putting bounties on the heads of federal border officials. This is as anti-ICE riots explode in Chicago and Portland, dozens of arrests. The Portland riots have raged for over 100 days straight and for weeks in Chicago. Joining us now, former Chicago Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy. Gary, a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us and for your service to Chicago and to America. It's great to see you. Can you answer this? Why are Democrats tolerating ICE agents getting attacked in Chicago when they've been catching over 1,000 criminals and gang members in Chicago, including Tren Aragua gang members?
By the way, Gary McCarthy, former NYPD. Hello there, Gary. Great. He was a chief and then he was a deputy commissioner.
Well, I can tell you this. I'm exhausted by elected officials creating standards for what we can and can't do. It does not comport with my value system, I can tell you that. But by the same token, I listened to Larry Snelling today, the police superintendent in Chicago, who talked about 27 officers actually got exposed to tear gas at the scene of that riot. So CPD actually did respond. And I'm willing to bet that the problem is the way that the standards are written by the state government is confusing what we can and can't do. And this happens all the time. And there's no two ways about it. One of my favorite topics to talk about is the quote unquote stop and frisk issue, where the Supreme Court said we could stop people based upon articulable, reasonable suspicion, yet we're held to a standard where we have to stop people based upon the population demographic, which the Supreme Court would find unconstitutional.
So that was going on in Chicago? That was going on? There was some demographic parameters they were using?
With stop and frisk? The quote, stop and frisk? Yes, absolutely.
In Chicago, okay.
It's 1968 Supreme Court decision. And this is the same thing. The state government is saying that the police will not assist ICE in some of their endeavors. And I'm sure that the officers responded immediately.
We got the sound coming in. We wanted to, I'm sorry to interrupt because we're running out of time. Chicago cops, this is about Chicago cops' order to stand down, not help ICE during that anti-ICE riot on Saturday. Listen to this.
Send the cars in that direction. Have them stay put 2 or 3 blocks away, all right? Have them hold tight until I give you further direction, please.
And again, per the chief of patrol, we have all the units that per 999. Chief of Patrol said all units clear out from there. We're not sending anybody over to that location. All right, and 999, just to confirm, 39th Police in Kedzie, they were saying that they were being surrounded by that large crowd, and they were requesting the police were not sending. I'm waving off all the cars heading to 39th Police in Kedzie.
Again, those are the orders we're being given.
Sorry, Gary, running out of time. Your quick take on that.
I would never not respond to another law enforcement official needing help. And I'm sure that's what those police officers all did. But by the same token, the direction that's coming from the governor, the direction that's coming from the mayor is completely inconsistent with that. That's not cool. It's not okay.
Not okay. Gary.
So, one of the things that you learn as a police officer, and you could take this upon yourself and get in trouble, but you are only required to obey lawful orders. Could you say that order that you were given by the chief of patrol was unlawful because he was telling you not to come to the assistance of a fellow law enforcement officer, you might take a hit for it, but I think in the end you would probably win because you're being called for help in a life and death situation. And your chief, because of politics, and let's not forget, you'll hear police say, we're not involved in the politics. Bullshit. The P in policing stands for politics. No other organization on this earth is run more by politics and politicians than the police. So what does that mean then? That means the chiefs, the highest ranking members of a department, they come and go by politics because their promotions are based on politics, right? So they don't want to piss anyone off that's a politician for the most part, although I was extremely, extremely impressed with Superintendent Larry Snelling. And we're going to play some of his press conference. There's no doubt that the police in Chicago were ordered by their chief of patrol to stand down. You saw documentation of it. You heard the radio broadcast in regards to it. They were definitely ordered. But there was a shooting at that location. So one of the protesters who rammed the ICE vehicle, she was armed with a semi-automatic weapon, she was shot. So now what do you have at that scene? You have a crime scene. So now you need the Chicago police to secure that scene. And the people that are processing the scene are the feds. The FBI is going to process that scene. So that could be why many Chicago officers, in fact, you're going to hear Superintendent Larry Snelling tell us that many of the officers, 27 of them, I believe, were exposed to tear gas. So they all filled out paperwork so there was at least 27 officers on that scene that we know about. So they'll hang their head on that. But there's no doubt that they were told not to respond. We're going to go to a quick commercial. And now a word from our sponsor. FanDuel's got an offer you don't want to miss this NFL season. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style. FanDuel has you covered. The NFL season is here. The only question is, are you ready to play? You must be 21 years or older and present in select states for Kansas and affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbookfanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE New York or text HOPE New York in New York. I want to thank Carol Grayston. She just gifted 5 Police Off the Cuff memberships. And if you're not a member or subscribe, please hit that subscribe button. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels, and you can support the Police Off the Cuff channel in that way. So Larry Snelling is the Chicago Superintendent of Police, and he responds in a very well-articulated press conference in regards to the position that the Chicago police take in regards to this, and also the no-win situation that they are in. This is Larry Snelling, the Superintendent of the Chicago Police.
Conference to talk about some of the things that's going on in the city. So I want to be clear about one thing. This is about law enforcement response to these types of incidents. So I want to be clear that I'm going to limit my responses to that. So it would be appreciated if your questions are around our law enforcement response to what we're seeing here with federal agents and immigration enforcement and how we respond. I've been quiet a little too long because I want to stay out of the politics of this, because as you know, there's a lot of politics around this. I don't play politics. I've told you that before. I'm the head of a department that enforces the law. We have to be politically neutral if we are going to enforce the law the way that it's supposed to be enforced, impartially. We want to make sure that when we show up, we're keeping every single person in this city safe, and we want to keep the peace. That's our jobs. And that's what our men and women out there every single day are doing, putting their lives on the line to keep this city safe. So I just want to be clear about a few things. The events that occurred on Saturday when there was a shooting involving ICE agents. So I'm going to start with a timeline. It started out with our two deputy chiefs who responded to the scene. That would be Deputy Chief Brian Canane and Deputy Chief Gabriella Shemash. They did an excellent job over there. The narrative is out there that CPD was not on scene. CPD did not show up. Let me just put all of that to rest. At 10:32 a.m., CPD receives a call of a person shot at 39th and Kedzie. By 10:36 a.m., CPD responds. They located a woman who flagged them down. She had been shot. She stated that she had been shot by federal agents. CFD was called. She was taken to the hospital to have her gunshot wounds treated. At 11:06, CPD officers are at the hospital with this individual who had been shot. At 11:25 a.m., CPD units are holding down the scene where the offending vehicle was located. And when I say the offending vehicle, we're talking about the vehicle that smashed into the Border Patrol vehicle. At 11:36 a.m., the scene is then turned over to federal authorities for their investigation after CPD was clear that there was a shooting that involved this particular person who was at the hospital. At 12:12 p.m., in a separate incident, and I believe people have been conflating these two things. In a separate incident from the shooting, there was a vehicle that rammed federal agents off the road, ran them off the road at 3200 West 35th Street. They crashed as a result of it. That offending vehicle also struck another vehicle in that location, another federal vehicle in that location, and then fled the scene. Our officers arrived on the scene to do the reports and document everything that happened. We have no documented injuries from that incident. At 12:28 p.m., federal agents called for CPD to assist due to a large crowd gathering at 39th and Kedzie. At 1:09 p.m., additional CPD units are en route to 39th and Kedzie. At 1:15 at 39th and Kedzie, where CPD is on scene, a group of protesters began moving barricades and federal agents deployed tear gas. At 2:56 p.m., objects are being thrown at CPD by members of the public. Federal agents again deployed gas to leave the area. So let me just kind of break down what happened there, because at 3:48, everything was all clear.
This is sort of I like this chief. This in Chicago they call him a superintendent. He's very articulate. He's got his T's crossed and his I's dotted. He wants to show that his people were there, and as to prove that, 27 of them suffered exposure to tear gas. But the politics of this, he clearly wants to stay away from. But as I said, the P in policing stands for politics. You can't possibly stay away from the politics. And for a law enforcement agency, for police officers to be told to stand down and not to respond to help another law enforcement agency is unheard of. And that smells of horrific politics. And there's no doubt that the chief of patrol from Chicago gave that order. It's on the radio, the air, it's on the air, and there's documentation of it. So Superintendent Larry Snelling is trying basically and doing a good job of doing damage control here to show, yes, we were on the scene. Yes, we did respond. So what do you believe? 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, as they say. Back to Superintendent Snelling here.
When our officers arrived on scene, they met with the federal agents who were out there. The federal agents had deployed chemical agents. They deployed chemical agents while our officers were there. Those who will tell you that our officers weren't there, say that to the 27 officers who were affected by the chemical agents that were deployed by federal agents. There were 27 reports done to document our officers who were affected by that gas. I've since had a conversation with federal agents, and on that particular day, I spoke with the leadership of the federal agency. We talked about things as to how we were going to work this out. You see, communication is the key here. Communication does not mean collaboration. This had nothing to do with immigration enforcement. What it had to do with a scene where someone in our city was shot, and we, as CPD, are responsible for showing up, documenting that, even when the shooting and the investigation has been taken over by the FBI. We stayed out there for the crime scene to make sure that evidence was preserved, because if that evidence isn't preserved, a proper and a well-performed investigation cannot be done if we don't preserve the crime scene. If we allow people to breach that area and contaminate the crime scene, it hurts the investigation. We have a duty to do so. So I need to be clear about a few things. When a crime is being committed, CPD is going to show up. And it doesn't matter if there are ICE agents there, we have a duty to investigate and protect our city. Now, there are a lot of talking heads out there. There are a lot of politics being used here. And people are using this for their political talking points. Well, my officers are not political pawns. My leadership team, not political pawns. Their lives.
You know, unfortunately, and this superintendent is great. He's articulate. He knows the right things to say. Unfortunately, CPD are political pawns. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're damned if they do, damned if they don't. The politicians clearly don't want any assistance to ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. That includes when they're being attacked and overwhelmed. They don't want the Chicago police to respond. But guess what? The law says that they must respond. So I know that Superintendent Snelling here means well, and he's a real cop. I can tell he's a real cop. But he's got to do damage control here because his police department, because of sanctuary city policy, is in between a rock and a hard place. And that's a fact. Go back to Superintendent Snelling.
Lives are too important to play politics with these men and women who face danger every single day. This is not a game. This is not a joke. This is still our city. And we still have a responsibility to maintain safety and calm in our city.
You know, someone in the chat, I'm going to just stop Superintendent Stelling for a second. This is a great question. Purgatory Afterglow 00. Question, what do the police do if they're called for backup but believe the federal agents are acting illegally? Honest question, not trying to start anything. They back up and they assist. They're not going to arrest another law enforcement officer. They can report what they saw and action can be taken later on. It's like going on to the scene. The law here is so ambiguous that you're putting law enforcement in a very, very difficult situation. You have federal law that uses ICE to remove illegal aliens from this country. And then you have sanctuary city law, and it's known actually as welcoming city ordinance. This is part of Chicago's law, the city, that the police are not allowed to ask anyone their citizen status. And of course, the Trust Act, another Chicago law, is the CPD can't help ICE with immigration enforcement. So that makes it very, very difficult for the Chicago Police Department to understand what they're going to do with their job. And will they be disciplined if they assist ICE? That hasn't really been addressed here by Superintendent Snelling.
Now, there are a couple of things that I want to address. One, what we have to deal with as a department, because I want to be clear to those who have never done the job, who haven't done the job in years, who weren't on scene, who don't know the facts or have the facts. But they've got a lot of solutions or a lot of ideas of what happened or what should have happened.
We call them Monday morning quarterbacks.
Let me first talk about the Trust Act. The Trust Act prohibits law enforcement in the state of Illinois from engaging in assisting federal agents when it comes to immigration enforcement. We abide by that law. The city ordinance, the welcoming city ordinance, goes a little further. It even prohibits us from asking someone their status. We abide by that ordinance because in law enforcement, we don't make the laws, we uphold them. And we're sworn to do so. And we take our oath seriously. Engaging with federal agents, we do it on a regular basis. We have task force officers who are out there every single day working to stop human trafficking, drug enforcement, gun violence, gun recoveries, search warrants, and everything in between when it comes to violent crime in our city. We have a great partnership with our federal agents, and we still do, and we will continue to work with them around violent crime. But let me explain how important it is to understand how difficult it is for our officers at times. Because when we look at the Trust Act and the Welcoming City Ordinance, sometimes there's a struggle when you're walking that line to make sure that you're not violating either one of those things, and at the same time enforcing the law the way that we're supposed to. One thing about law enforcement, I'll tell you this right now, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But we accept that. So I'm not going to stand here and make excuses or pretend like the job is not a struggle, so we're going to make excuses about it. No, we're not going to do that. Again, These men and women go out there every single day, and these are the things that they fight through. And my leadership team wants to make sure that our officers don't get caught up in something where they end up in an investigation, fairly or unfairly, and they want to make sure that these officers are safe and that they can keep everyone else safe. So although we do not engage in immigration enforcement, we are going to enforce the law when the laws are violated. So let me be clear to the public about certain things. You have to excuse me, I'm a little dehydrated. Let me make this clear. Federal agents, ICE, HSI, are officers. They are agents of law enforcement. If you box them in with vehicles, it is reasonable for them to believe that they are being ambushed and that this could end in a deadly situation. And it's reasonable for them to use force based on those conditions. Do not box in any law enforcement officer. You are breaking the law when you do that. And you are putting yourself in danger. Following law enforcement agents around. The question is why? What do you plan on doing? It's also reasonable for them to believe that you're eventually going to do harm to them. If you ram any vehicle, especially that one that contains law enforcement agents, and that's any law enforcement, local, state, federal, county, and you do this intentionally, this is considered deadly force. Deadly force is anything that can cause great bodily harm or death. When you plow into a vehicle that contains law enforcement agents, you're using deadly force. And they can use deadly force in response to stop you.
So this guy's a real cop. There's no doubt in my mind. He's the real popo. And he's giving, he's telling the public, this is the law. This is what the officers feel. This is the position the officers were in. Were the officers allowed? Were they right in using deadly physical force? Well, if someone boxes you in and rams your car, they have bad intentions. They have very bad intentions. Could they be meaning to use deadly physical force against you? Is using a vehicle to ram into you potentially deadly physical force? You bet. You bet. Let's hear from Mayor Brandon Johnson here.
Good morning. Can you confirm the reports that Chicago police were ordered to stand down when ICE agents were surrounded and rammed by cars? And do you want Chicago police not to help ICE agents?
Our police officers respond to every single emergency in this city. The brave women and men who sign up to serve and protect this city are committed to keeping us safe. And what we have made very clear is through our welcoming city ordinance, when it comes to civil immigration enforcement, absent a warrant, our police department will not dub as federal ICE agents. In fact, we believe it's antithetical to driving violence down in the city of Chicago. When people call 911, we do not ask what their immigration status is, right? And so our police department will respond to every incident in which their services are needed to keep people safe, protecting the fundamental right to be able to protest, ensuring the maximum safety of our residents. That is the top priority of our administration.
Can you confirm, though, were Chicago police told to stand down?
What I can confirm is that our police department responds to every single 911 call. When 911 is called and there's an emergency, our police department shows up.
I guess he answered the question by not answering the question. We already saw that there was a there was a audio on the radio version and also a documented version that the officers were told not to respond, And we know that it's not popular in sanctuary cities for ICE to be present in these cities. However, they have been sent to the cities that at this point that have the highest crime rate. And so they're there, and the political powers that be do not want them there. I want to play this. This is showing who's involved and how a Chicago gang member ordered a hit on a Border Patrol agent.
Tonight with an alleged Chicago street gang member being accused in a murder for hire plot, and the target here was a top Border Patrol agent, Greg Bovino. Our investigative reporter Bennett Haberly is here with the details on this. Bennett?
Alex, the court filing alleges that Juan Espinoza Martinez, who authorities say is tied to the Latin Kings gang, told a law enforcement confidential source that he was offering up cash for information on a top Border Patrol agent that turns out to be Gregory Bovino, and even more for his murder. That's according to 2 law enforcement sources. Over the weekend, federal authorities alleged that 2 people tried to ram the vehicles containing federal immigration agents near 39th and Kedzie. It ended with agents shooting a woman in one of those vehicles. After that incident, court records allege that Juan Espinoza Martinez sent out messages offering to Latin Kings and others up to $2,000 for information on a senior Border Patrol official we learned is Gregory Bovino, and $10,000 for his murder, according to 2 law enforcement sources. Cell phone video captured an arrest today. Department of Homeland Security Kristi Noem did not mention Bovino's name, but discussed the threat during an appearance on Fox News.
We have specific officers and agents that have bounties that have been put out on their heads. It's been $2,000 to kidnap them, $10,000 to kill them. They've released their pictures. They've sent them between their networks, and it's an extremely dangerous situation and unprecedented.
And that criminal complaint also states that Espinoza Martinez included a picture of Gregory Bovino in his alleged solicitation messages sent via Snapchat. We've reached out tonight to DHS and Border Patrol for comment. We have not yet heard back.
So that's pretty disturbing, I would think. I remember when I was a young sergeant in the 2-4 precinct, and there was a rather large drug trade and drug gang working the upper end of the 2-4 precinct. And they would actually threaten cops and follow them home. Could you imagine that? So if you don't think policing is a 24/7 job, think of some mutts, some drug dealing mutts, like in this thing, a Latin King, threatening you and putting a bounty on your head. Are you kidding me? Incidentally, in this case, the female who was in the car that rammed the ICE agent's vehicle, who was armed with a semi-automatic weapon, he was released without being held by a judge in Chicago. That is also what they're up against, is these judges and these court system there that just release people. And New York City has the same problems with the bail reform law, and it is extremely dangerous to take that position. Against criminals, like that, you're not going to prosecute. You're going to release them as if they're just regular, ordinary citizens. They're not criminals. They don't have the money for bail, so we're not gonna have bail. We're just gonna ROR, released on your own recognizance. Just absolutely ridiculous. This is about the National Guard being deployed to Chicago.
Of National Guard troops are soon to deploy to Chicago, this on a mission that the Trump administration says is meant to protect federal officers and their facilities in the city. Some troops are already guarding an ICE procession facility just outside of the city. And it was on Monday that Chicago and state of Illinois then sued the Trump administration, trying to stop what they call an unlawful deployment. A federal judge declined to immediately block that deployment, but scheduled arguments for this case on Thursday. Fox's Asher Red is live there in Chicago. Asher, we also know that the FBI is just one of those agencies saying that they could use the help.
Well, Christina, I was with FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche earlier today, and both of them explained exactly why they think that federal agents here in Chicago need National Guard protection. Patel and the Deputy AG toured the FBI Chicago field office today. The visit comes as the Justice Department says agents are facing increased threats of violence and attacks here in the city. One of those cases involved an alleged murder-for-hire plot against a Border Patrol commander. Prosecutors say a Chicago gang leader shared Snapchat messages offering $2K for info on the commander's whereabouts and, quote, $10K if you can take him down. Separately, the FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information on 2 vehicle ramming attacks on federal agents in Chicago over the weekend.
I mean, at this point, it's almost laughable that the state government is standing up and saying, don't let the National Guard in. I mean, they have access to the same TV that I have access to. And of course we need the National Guard.
Some of the anti-ICE protests in this area, including at an ICE processing facility in nearby Broadview, Illinois, have turned violent. The mayor of Broadview has now set a specific protest hours from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. around the facility, and she has imposed a curfew. Meanwhile, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is dialing up the rhetoric against the Trump administration, calling the federal agents thugs and vowing to not back down.
Federal agents have been openly carrying assault rifles downtown, racially profiling people, and based on that, demanding proof of citizenship and snatching people up in our neighborhoods without a judicial warrant. Donald Trump's deranged depiction of Chicago as a hellhole, a war zone, and the worst and most dangerous city in the world was just complete BS.
And the judge is giving the Trump administration until 11:59 tomorrow night to respond to this lawsuit. Chicago, the state of Illinois, and the Trump administration will be in court on Thursday over this. Christina?
So much still to follow there. We appreciate Fox's Asher Red for giving us the very latest from live there in.
So you can see there's a lot going on. They really, in these sanctuary cities, of course, they really do not want the National Guard there. They don't want Homeland Security. They certainly don't want ICE there. But this is how it's been deployed. And Chicago, listen, many people don't pay attention, because almost every single weekend, and I don't have the exact numbers, but Chicago has anywhere between 15 and 30 people shot just about every single weekend. And along with the people shot, a number anywhere from 5 to 10 are dead, are shot dead. If that's acceptable to your mayor, if that's acceptable to your governor, then you need a new mayor and a new governor. They're both idiots, Pritzker and that other guy, Brandon Johnson. If that is acceptable, that was the way New York was in the 80s. New York in I believe it was 1990 or 1991. One precinct up in Washington Heights, the 3-4 precinct, had 129 murders. One precinct. And New York City had, I don't have the exact number. I think it was that year had over 2,000 murders. And it became like acceptable. Oh, we can't do any better. That's just the way it is. The drug trade, allowing these drug dealers to take over neighborhoods. 129 murders in Washington Heights. And it was thought back then that, well, what can we really do about crime? Can we really do anything about it? And I think that's sort of the way Chicago is. They believe I think the government, the mayors and the aldermans and all these people, I really think they take the side of the criminals over the police. Just absolutely outrageous. I want to go back to the superintendent, Larry Snelling, and let him finish his presentation here.
We need to be clear about these laws. We cannot become a society where we just decide to take everything in our own hands and start to commit crimes against law enforcement. It is a crime. You may not like what they're doing. I can understand that there's a lot of emotions out there, but that does not mean that you get to commit a crime, especially one that could lead to deadly force. We need to keep everyone safe. Our responsibilities when it comes to federal agents, and I've been asked these questions, we do not interfere with the duties and responsibilities of federal agents. We don't have to agree with it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to agree with it. We do not interfere with their orders. And when they go out to carry out their orders, they will do that the way that they're trained to do it and their understanding of what it is they have to do. Another one. CPD will not arrest and cannot arrest federal agents because someone deems what they're doing is illegal or unlawful. Their rules of engagement are different from CPD and other local law enforcement agents. We need to be clear about this. If we're not clear about this, we will see another event like we saw Saturday. We cannot move like this in this city. If we want to keep the peace in this city, we need to be smart about how we do things. And attacking law enforcement under any circumstances is not safe for anyone. Because as I've said before, a member of law enforcement who cannot protect himself or herself cannot protect anyone else. And we have a responsibility to make sure that we protect ourselves and each other so that we can protect everyone else in this city. If for any reason a crime is being committed, an ICE agent, state, local, police officers, if it involves law enforcement, we are going to show up. And whatever's going on there, we're going to work to stop it, put an end to it, calm the situation down. And if we need to stay there to continue to keep the situation calm, we will do exactly that. So I want to be clear about one of the things that we're going to do now. What we're going to do, and this is my decision because I need to be firm on this. When we show up to a scene and a crowd gathers, CPD is going to step out there. We're going to make sure that we maintain that scene and we keep people calm. This is our city, and we're going to make sure that we bring some type of calm or resolution to whatever's going on at that scene. We will be there. Now, when we look at what has happened, there's some things that we can work on. Because whenever you see something for the first time and you respond to it, there's always something that you can do better. That's what we do. And that's why we're having an after action about what happened so that we can prepare if something like this happens again, or to prepare to make sure that we can avoid it. So we learned some things. Now, I'm going to allow some questions from everyone here. I'll do my best to answer your questions to the best of my ability. Again, I would like for everyone to stay on topic as to what we're talking about here right now. And when it's over, there's some things that I'm probably going to touch on if we don't get to them with the questions.
So that's Superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, Larry Snelling. To me, I can smell a real cop. He's a real cop, you know. He is the superintendent, chief in a lot of, you'd call him in a lot of departments. But he made some good points. And, you know, one of the things I really liked, and it seems like some of these things came from the NYPD, the CompStat, where you would critique how you responded to a major incident. And you would look at things you did right, things you did wrong, and how you could learn from them in the future. And the Chicago police have a very difficult job, and their job is made more difficult by this guy here. This mayor, Brandon Johnson, just totally clueless. You look into his eyes, it seems like there's rocks in his head. And this idiot right here, this cheeseburger eater, he is like unbelievable. How do people get into positions of power like that seem just not even to understand the law? They don't understand policing, yet they're making the rules for the police. It's really disconcerting. However, it's one of the good things is that you have a man like this. On the scene, on the screen, you see Larry Snelling, Superintendent, Chicago Police Department. Then it gives you a certain amount of confidence because he's a professional. He understands the law. He understands the parameters of what they can do and what they can't do. He understands leadership. He understands being a police officer from the rank of police officer all through the ranks up to police superintendent. And that is very important. The best bosses on the NYPD that rose to the rank of chief or police commissioner for that matter were good street cops. The bookworms, the guys who just passed the tests, they weren't always the best bosses. They weren't always the one you wanted on a scene of a major incident. But I think that Mr. Snelling, Superintendent Snelling, he does a hell of a job, and he's in a no-win situation there in Chicago. But he's a winner, so he'll come out on top, I believe. So, folks, I want to. This is a tough topic to cover because, look, I say right at the outset of this podcast, this is from a police perspective, and this is the way I present it, the way cops think, not necessarily the way the politics are. And as I said, police can say they're not involved in the politics, but I'll tell you right now, and I said it a million times, the P in policing stands for politics because, as you see, even Larry Snelling has to understand politics and has to understand how to speak to it and how to deal with some of these people who pull the strings of the police department, even though they don't understand policing, nor do they understand the law. So it's good to have a professional like him and his executive staff. But Chicago does need help. It does need help. And you can have an opinion on whether ICE should be there or the National Guard should be there, or should they just let the Chicago police handle that city by itself? And clearly, the Chicago police cannot handle Chicago, or else they wouldn't be having 30 people shot every single weekend. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'll see you the next time. God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.